And now, broadcasting from deep behind enemy lines in the occupied territory of the Socialist Republic of California, your host, former California State Assemblyman and Governor candidate, Tim Donnelly.
Hey, we may be far behind enemy lines, but we are atop the mountain, and it is snowy up here. We have received, I don't know what to call it in global warming terms because it doesn't fit the profile, but this white powder and white crystals fell out of the sky, and who knows, maybe we are on the way to ending the drought. And I mean that not just here in California, I mean for this country. Maybe we're going to get a leader. Because no matter what the GOP does, no matter what the media does, no matter what the leftists do, they can't take down Trump. And you got both Donald Trump and Ted Cruz talking about abandoning the GOP. Why not? What does the GOP have to offer you if you're a conservative? I'm dead serious about that. And if you want to opine, we're going to take your calls all day today. It's going to be sort of an open line, politically incorrect Friday, and you can talk about whatever you want. And I promise I'll let you go on for a little while before I cut you off. Hey, if it seemed like I was a little bit down yesterday, I was. I guess I got mad first, and it finally hit me yesterday. The sadness, the tragedy, the pathos that just overwhelmed me mid-show. I am not going to apologize because John in North Carolina will call and chastise me. But, you know, I'm not sad today. I'm mad as hell because everything we worried about, everything we were concerned about, I'm being careful not to use the word we're afraid of. But the truth is, everything we were afraid of, the government and this politically correct narrative, this politically correct control scheme, whatever you want to call it, they ain't doing it to not offend people. They're doing it to shut you up. They're doing it to shut down dissent. They're doing it to avoid criticism. And when you hear one of the clips we're going to play today, last night on Megyn Kelly, she had one of the top guys at one point at DHS, who they mysteriously retired in the middle of him doing some really important work. But he was hot on the trail of, yes, none other than Syed Rizwan Farouk. And if that name sounds familiar, that is the San Bernardino massacre. Well, I guess massacrer. He's the killer. He's the murderer. He's the Muslim that murdered all of those Americans at a Christmas party. Yes, you note I didn't say holiday party because on this show, we will never, the only thing we don't tolerate is political correctness. You can disagree, you can argue, but you cannot bring any of that politically correct garbage because it is mind control. It ultimately paralyzes your ability to act. And if you don't believe me, wait till you hear, and you're going to have to stay tuned to the show. Wait till you hear what happened at DHS. That's all I'm going to tell you. But it involves the San Bernardino Christmas party massacre murderer, Syed Rizwan Farouk. We've got another clip you're going to love. You're just absolutely going to love it because the hypocrisy of the left has gone so far. I don't know if they thought maybe they were going to keep it hidden forever, but somebody mysteriously found it, put it on YouTube, and next thing you know, it's on the Drudge Report. It is on my Facebook page. It is on timdonnellyshow.com. We have a fantastic show in store for you today. You have got to see this. But if you are a fan of Jimmy Carter, and if you are not a fan of Jimmy Carter, both of you are going to be happy. Now, how many times could I say something like that? But Jimmy Carter makes Donald Trump look like he's following along, as Jimmy Carter, for once, sounded like an American. And we will bring you that a little bit later on. We also are going to have a special guest who did an analysis. He's done some great work down in Huntington Beach. You know him, Michael Hoskinson. He's talked to us about this this whole HUD thing with the affirmative action, where they basically go into your neighborhood and repopulate it and steal people's property in order to push a demographic and a racial agenda in order to make your neighborhood less racist, which really changes the voting demographics. That's the real reason. But Michael studied years ago and analyzed why political correctness was overwhelming our culture and just creeping into everything. And so I'm just calling that segment Politically Correct with a Purpose. And you know what? Some of this stuff today that we're going to talk about is going to set you free. That's all I'm going to tell you. It is going to confirm what you already knew, confirm what you already suspected, that yes, the government wants to control you. And almost everything they do, whether it's the IRS auditing Tea Party groups or individuals who get a little too outspoken, or whether it is the government, I mean, oh my God, every 15 seconds, something happens, some tragedy, and it neatly fits into, oh yeah, it's a perfectly good reason for us to take away your guns. And more Americans that I'm talking to everywhere have a very simple attitude. And unfortunately, we are not Sirius satellite radio, so I cannot say it, but it has to do with F the government, and I'll leave it at that. And it has to do with taking an attitude that I'm going to live free. I am going to think like a free person. And if you think I called this the Radio Free California Network by happenstance, think again. You see, the Radio Free Europe, the broadcast went in behind enemy lines, and it was a way to pass information, but it was also a way to propagandize those hearts and souls, the hearts and minds of the people who didn't know any better, to change their minds, to win them over so that they knew the truth, so that they had hope. And we are doing that right here. We are not trying to propagandize. We're simply trying to inform, educate, and engage. And sometimes the truth is the best antidote. But sometimes it's so politically incorrect, it's revolutionary. And you know what? I'm not going to apologize for it, because the pathway to victory, the pathway to gaining control of our government, the pathway to freedom is going to be paved with a lot of potholes. There's going to be obstacles every which way. You're going to have to bring a machete and blaze your own path half the time. But once you do, others will follow. And if you are an influence maker, if you're someone who people follow, people listen to, people look up to, you have an obligation right now. You have an obligation to find out the truth and spread it. And the truth is, our government sucks. Our government has not been doing their job. They've been lying to you. They've been taking your freedom. They've been taking your money. And they couldn't find half the terrorists because they're not allowed to. And I'm not talking trash about the law enforcement on the ground. They're the only ones who are at least somewhat or fundamentally honest and have their hearts in the right place. It is the leaders. It is the politically correct. It is the political leadership of our law enforcement agencies from every single level all the way up into the highest levels who have a very different agenda and to varying degrees. We're going to talk about all of that, including the Muslim Brotherhood and how it has infiltrated our government and how decisions are being made, purposeful decisions, to undermine the security of this country. And you know what? The government can't save us. It's up to you. So whatever you do, stay tuned. This is not going to be a laid-back Friday broadcast because I am fired up. 323-746-TALK. I want to hear from you when we come back. Hey, if you're wondering what station you stumbled onto, you have found the Radio Free California Network. I am Tim Donnelly, your host, former California State Assemblyman and radio governor here in the state of California. The now sunny, gorgeous, beautiful. It is so awesome to have the liquid sunshine that fell earlier today, and then followed by the actual sun coming out. I'm outside shoveling snow. I'm energized. I'm fired up. I am mad as hell, and I am not going to take it anymore. Wait till you hear what the Department of Homeland Security... Now, let me give you a little background first before we roll this clip. The Department of Homeland Security recently built... by the way, they're responsible for the TSA, the constant, continual, nonstop violation of your Fourth Amendment right to not be searched and seized without any probable cause. And then take a look what they've done out in the San Fernando Valley.
Breaking tonight, a former employee at the Department of Homeland Security is blowing the whistle, contending that his superiors shut down a program that might have provided an early warning on the terrorists behind last week's attack in California. We will speak with him in a moment. But first to Trace Gallagher with the backstory. Trace?
Megan, for background, we should note in the early 2000s, Philip Haney was among the founding members of the Department of Homeland Security and was later assigned to the Intelligence Review Unit, or IRU. His job was to investigate individuals with potential links to terrorism, and it was in that capacity that Haney says he noticed a trend of people with suspected radicalized ties coming into the United States. So he began looking into a collection of global networks that were infiltrating radical Islamists into the U.S. In other words, Haney and his team were getting somewhere. But a year into that investigation, Haney says they got a visit from the State Department and the Homeland Security Civil Rights Division, who said that tracking these groups and individuals was, quote, problematic because they were Islamic groups. Haney says the investigation was shut down and 67 of his records deleted. Among them, an investigation into an organization with ties to the mosque in Riverside that San Bernardino terrorist Saeed Farouk attended. Haney believes if his work had been allowed to continue, it may have thwarted last week's attack. Haney says a few years ago he notified Congress and the DHS Inspector General about the investigation into Islamic groups being terminated, but instead of the investigation being reinstated, Haney claims his superiors retaliated, pulling him from his duties and revoking his security clearance. We just got off the phone with Homeland Security. They told us there are many holes in Mr. Haney's story, but they couldn't comment further because of privacy laws. Megan.
Trace, thank you. Joining me now with more, former Department of Homeland Security employee Philip Haney, and with reaction, Mark Thiessen, the former chief presidential speechwriter for President George W. Bush and a Fox News contributor. Thank you both for being here. Philip, why do you believe that the work you were pursuing may have led to the detection of these two?
The network of individuals that we worked with were tied to a large group called Tablighi Jamaat, part of a larger group called Deobande. We had thousands of organizations or individuals in the database, and we tracked them as they moved in and out of the United States on the visa waiver program. That's what first brought the group to our attention. And as we developed the case and started putting the pieces in place, we gained more and more evidence of their activities.
Mm-hmm. And they were connected to Farouk's mosque?
The Farouk Mosque is called Dar Uloom. It's a global network of similar kinds of mosques under the umbrella of this organization.
And so under your program, you would have identified the mosque and done what?
I can tell you how I would have identified it, because individuals that were already in the case in 2012 went to that mosque. Therefore, as we were tracking them, we would have put the red light on them. Mm-hmm. Therefore, two things very plausibly would have happened. Either Syed would have been put on the no-fly list because of association with that masjid, and or the K-1 visa that his wife was given may have been denied because of his affiliation with a known organization.
Mm-hmm. And you say they shut you down because they felt this was essentially profiling of Muslims.
They specifically said that because we FOIA'd the case. And we got the internal memos, and it says that we are not allowed to develop a case based on Tablighi Jamaat specifically and or any Islamic group.
I mean, we're not talking about peace-loving Muslims who are in the United States who have assimilated. We're talking about Islamists who believe in Sharia and much worse.
Yes, the correct term is Salafi. It means original. They go back to the way Islam used to be at the very beginning. Everybody in the world outside of America knows about the Deobandes, i.e. the Tablighi Jamaat group. We don't know as much about them here yet, but that was exactly the organization that I worked with. We started the case 6 years prior. Then I came to the National Targeting Center and worked on that case specifically. Then I went back to my home port, and I discovered that as soon as I left, they shut the case down. Mm-hmm. By the way, they gave me a commendation letter for finding 300 terrorists related specifically to the initiative.
Mark, we've seen the dismantling of the intelligence we had set up in the Iraq area after we took over there. We've seen the CIA black sites where we interrogated terrorists. That's done. Yep. They just further eroded our abilities to interrogate terrorists on Capitol Hill.
That's right.
One after the other. We're seeing, I mean, the president holding don't discriminate against Muslims up on equal footing to we don't want any more terror attacks. Right? I'm not saying discrimination is a good thing, but what we've seen in the numbers doesn't match up to what the terror threat right now. And it has people feeling very disconcerted.
Absolutely. And it's political correctness run amok. If this is true that the Department of Homeland Security actually shut down an investigation that could have stopped this terrorist attack because they didn't want to profile a Muslim group, this mosque, that's political correctness run amok. And we've seen this. We've had a president who is willing to condemn gun violence, but is unwilling to say the words Islamic radicalism. We just saw in this case that the neighbors of Farouk and Malik were afraid to turn them in, even though they saw suspicious activity, because they didn't want to be called Islamophobes. Political correctness kills, and we are in a miasma of political correctness in this country today, and it's got to stop.
And the administration doesn't even understand why people are a little reluctant to let 10,000 Syrian refugees come into the country when, you know, we can't even keep the one woman who is obviously tied to radicals abroad was let in with no problems.
No, that's exactly right. And look, the president says that we're betraying American values. Republicans are, because they don't want to let in 10,000 Syrian refugees. They said they're mostly women and children. Well, this is a woman with a 6-month-old child who just killed 16 people. I mean, so Republicans raise legitimate security concerns, and they're basically accused of being anti-Muslim bigots. This is deadly stuff. It's got to stop.
The people are not against Muslims. They are against radical Muslims and those who affiliate with the Sharia and Salafi, who could potentially be problematic. Thank you both for being here.
I think I'm going to create a bumper sticker that says, guns don't kill, PC does. Political correctness. Here, you heard it. There would be 14 people alive if political correctness within our intelligence agencies, within our Department of Homeland Security, so-called, what a bunch of crap. This is insane. This is beyond unacceptable. And, you know, this is not the first we've heard of it. It's just the first we've heard of it in the connection with this case. We heard it from Pamela Geller. We heard it from Frank Gaffney at the Center for Security Policy. We heard it from Robert Spencer, jihadwatch.org. We've heard it from dozens within the FBI. We've heard it from law enforcement on the ground. And now it has come out and claimed the lives of innocent Americans. And that is unacceptable. That it is up to you and I to push back and stop this. We're going to have Michael Hoskinson coming on, political correctness with a purpose, coming up after the break. And we will take your call. So if you're on hold, just stay there or call back when you hear me give out the number, because I want to hear from you. Stay tuned. Going to take a quick call before we bring our guest on. Hey, give me first name and city, please.
Hello, Tim.
You're live on air.
Ike, and I'm from Fremont, California.
Hi, Ike. You got 30 seconds. Give me your comment.
Okay, here we go. I got a definition. Trumptics, a political and media strategy exemplified by Donald Trump to overpower all media, all political, and all adversarial opponents daily. Here's the acronym. Donald, dominating, oppressive, nonsensical, apathetic, liberal Democrats. Trump, tremendous results under mounting pressure. Here's my prediction. One day, the Obama administration and Loretta Lynch must admit that pigmentation, deception, and all of their political tricks has failed to deliver anything worthwhile to we the people and to all who love this one nation under God. Final statement. It's time for Obama to go. The brother is running on empty. I'm out.
Ike, you are awesome. You got to send me an email with that acronym, my friend, because I love it. And please call back sometime when I don't have a guest right in front of you, because I love your energy.
God bless.
God bless you, and have a great weekend. Hey, let's bring on Michael Hoskinson, and let's talk about political correctness with a purpose. Michael, welcome to the show.
Tim, Merry Christmas. How can I follow that guy?
I don't know, but I'm glad I brought him on, man, because he called a couple times, and I just thought, I'm going to give him 30 seconds, and man, did he make good use of it. And by the way, Ike, my email is tim@timdonnellyshow.com. Anybody can reach me there. Please send me that, because I want to run that again, because I didn't have a chance to write it all down, but it was brilliant. Did you not? Did you think so, Mike?
Oh my God, that guy, he crushed it. That was beautiful.
Yeah, and there is a rising tide of anger. It is not fear. So mark my words, politicians and political class and the establishment, when you have Ben Carson, Donald Trump, and Ted Cruz, the three of the most significant candidates on the Republican ticket, saying they may leave the Republican Party, that's some serious stuff. And when you find out political correctness stopped an investigation that could have stopped the San Bernardino, okay, I'm going to talk here, the San Bernardino Christmas party massacre before it happened, then if you're not mad as hell, then there's something wrong with you, and you need to go listen to somebody who's a lot more boring.
Well, I can't be that boring for you today, but I do have some good information about political correctness.
Mike, I was excited when I got your email, and you said you studied this. What prompted you to study political correctness?
Well, I'm going to have to blame Andrew Breitbart for this, because when I read his book, Righteous Indignation, he introduced me to a group called the Frankfurt School. And I'm going to bet that 1% of your audience, or maybe 2, because they're pretty knowledgeable, know about a group called the Frankfurt School. They are the group that literally invented political correctness as a strategy to destroy their opponent's ability to speak. And if we got a couple minutes, I'll sketch out who they were.
Please
so
do.
People can understand.
Yeah,
study more.
Walk us through this, because I think people now more than ever really want to understand this is not something that is happenstance. This is political correctness was not introduced in order to not offend groups. No.
This was a strategy invented by humans for the exact purpose to which it has been applied. The Frankfurt School were a group of German Marxist intellectuals. They formed the Institute of Social Research at Frankfurt University in 1923. It's here they created their twin ideologies of cultural Marxism, which combines the failed economic theories of Karl Marx and the psychosexual theories of Sigmund Freud. And they also invented a thing called critical theory. The two combined to form what we now call political correctness. The Frankfurt School were chased out of Germany in 1933 by the fear of Hitler because they were Jews. They moved to the States. They were welcomed with open arms by American colleges like Columbia and Brandeis and other Ivy League institutions. They began implementing what Italian Marxist Antonio Gramsci called, quote, the long march through the institutions. It called for infiltration of government, churches, schools, the entertainment industry, and the media in order to create what they called a cultural hegemony or dominance. So a number of the Frankfurt School people survived long enough to become cultural icons in the 1960s. In particular, Herbert Marcuse, called the father of the New Left, created the slogan, "Make love, not war," and he wrote the book called Repressive Tolerance, which teaches that true tolerance would mean intolerance against movements from the right and toleration of movements from the left. Marcuse was a counterculture rock star that may have corroded a culture more than anyone at that point. And this is just, the tiniest inkling of who these people were.
So there was a method. There was a method to the madness. This was not something that just rose up out of the people.
No. These people they came out of learning from the 1917 revolution in Soviet Russia, that Marx taught that if you simply allowed the workers, or you forced the workers essentially to be free, they would create an uprising where the workers would take over. Well, it never happened. So in 1923, here are these eggheads in the Institute of Social Research trying to figure out why their glorious revolution didn't work. And they said, well, we have to set about fixing it, because they're always fixing the thing that never works. So
that sounds very familiar. Here we have a government that's always fixing problems that our government created with another government solution.
Well, there may be some dots to connect there. But so they reasoned quite correctly that if you could create a system that your enemies felt they could never utter their opinion, you would have won already. And so this is what the second component, which is critical theory, was about. And they have a really long explanation of what critical theory is, but it is essentially, and you'll recognize this, criticizing anything you disagree with until it shuts the hell up and disappears. So
yeah, that doesn't work on me, by the way. I just want to make that crystal clear. That just lights my fuse.
Right. Well, take global warming, for example. It's the one that's in our face all the time. By the government's own satellite data, there's been no warming on the planet for 19 years. But if you differ with the left's belief in global warming, you are labeled a denier and ridiculed forcefully until you're silenced. It's a perfect example of both political correctness and critical
not
theory
even,
in action.
I know, but let's build on that, because it's a perfect setup, Mike. We're talking, if you're just tuning in, we're talking with Mike Hoskinson of Huntington Beach. He is a great American, a true patriot, and an activist extraordinaire. He's also infiltrated our government to some extent. You're on some commission or committee down there, aren't you?
Planning commission.
Planning. Oh, that's awesome. You get to see everything that's going on.
I didn't infiltrate. I was invited. So let's just be clear.
All right. Well, some of us are invited to the parties. Others crash it. But here's just today. There is news out. Well, a couple months ago, the Obama administration, some of his people, his lieutenants, wanted the right to be able to put people in jail to silence what they call the climate deniers. Anybody who speaks their mind, anybody who disagrees with this massive fraud, one of the greatest frauds and hoaxes ever perpetuated on the human race, is literally could have been subjected to 6 months in jail and some hefty fine just for speaking. And now today
Senator Sheldon Whitehouse. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
The BBC threw a radio host off air today. And in this so-called effort, the climate control summit over there in Paris, they're saying we have 1 day left to save the planet, and one of the proposals, they're serious about this, is to track greenhouse gas emissions by satellite, spy on you. Sound familiar? Spy on you by satellite, and then have some global entity which has control over you, punish you or penalize you or fine you or imprison you. I mean, this stuff is happening right now as we speak, Mike.
But wait, they don't agree that the satellite data can take temperatures, but the satellite data can check on you. Is that correct?
Exactly. Now you're on to the hypocrisy. Okay. I put up a post today, the left's hypocrisy knows no bounds.
Right. So the thing that changed my life in a really fundamental way was this knowledge that the thing we call political correctness is not organic. And I ask people that. I say, do you think it's organic? Do you think it was created by man? And 90% of the people think it's organic. And once we realize that this thing that is being used against us single day, shut us up, was a plot by really evil, smart people, that I decided it was my goal in life and my mission in life to tell the truth as forcefully as humanly possible every day and every moment. And my
I love it. I love it. Now I'm going to stop you. I'm going to stop you right there because I want to take a break and I want to come back and hear more about that journey. We're talking with Mike Hoskinson about the birth of political correctness as a purposeful strategy to undermine our sovereignty as citizens. Stay tuned. Hey, this is Tim Donnelly. Welcome back to the Radio Free California Network. I want to make a quick shout out to my good friends at Rocky's Roadhouse where I had lunch today. And you know what? They wouldn't let me pay for my sandwich, so I'm giving them a free ad. And you got to go there. If you're just coming up the hill, if you're a Flatlander coming up for the snow, or if you live up here, go over there, say hi to Denny, Kenny, Eleanor, Ashley, and ask them about the new sandwich that they're going to name after me. Until it's done, I'm not going to tell you the name, but you got to go over there. And by the way, we had a great politically correct discussion, and it was awesome. Great stuff. We're talking with Michael Hoskinson, who is on the City Planning Commission in Huntington Beach. He is a business owner. He is a great patriot, and he is a true American. And we're talking about political correctness and its genesis. And you were just starting to say, Mike, that you sort of made it your mission to tell the truth and let people know. Bring it on.
Yes, I did. But Dr. Rocky's Roadhouse, they're also putting a new sandwich together. It's a Neil Kashkari sandwich. It's all bologna with no bread.
You would never have a sandwich named that into that particular establishment. I can tell you right now, that would be somewhere in L.A.
Exactly.
Not in these here hills.
So when I heard that and I read that and I studied more and more, I found that this connects the dots to what's happening in the Obama era perfectly. You know, these are really brilliant people that know how to manipulate the public like nobody's business. They have taken the work of the Frankfurt School. They've taken the work of Karl Marx, of Saul Alinsky, of every dark person on the left, and even some on the right, to, make this unbelievable, I don't even know what to call it, this most, terrible evil that's been perpetrated on the public in our history.
Let me interrupt you and ask you a question. Because all of us who wanted to abuse ourselves watched the president's speech, and it was so weak, so pathetic, and then he didn't get excited or passionate until he was lecturing us on gun control and on our Islamophobic tendencies as Americans. This is a man who did not come to San Bernardino, even though he went to Charleston. He did not come and speak at a single memorial service, one of which has already taken place and many more that are planned. And I believe in large part because he does not want to shine the light on the Islamic terrorism that has occurred on his watch while he refuses to speak the truth about it.
Sure. Well, we're all familiar with the old phrase, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. So while we, the people who live in the real world, are concerned with Islamic jihad and Islamic terrorism, we are taking our eyes off the ball of what he is doing in Washington. So Islamic terror serves his purpose to have the smart people like us who want to stop him be distracted with this. And of course, he's not going to help. He's not also going to, I'm not saying he's doing things but he's certainly not lifting a finger to stop it.
Well, as far as the gun control agenda, which he started parroting literally while the killers were still on the loose. He didn't even know anything about them, didn't know why, didn't know when, didn't know how, didn't know if they bought their guns legally or illegally, didn't care because it just was Saul Alinsky, rules for radicals, Never let a good crisis go to waste. He's out there babbling that stuff. And I'll tell you what happened in that moment for me. And I believe that perhaps a lot of our listeners and a lot of Americans all over this country experienced a similar epiphany. As I was sitting there in my living room thinking that the terrorists could literally roll up my road, since I'm 15 miles from where it is, and we're the nearest mountain sort of wilderness where you could hide out. And I was looking at my guns and determining how many rounds were in each magazine, and just got pissed off and ticked off that the government could dare tell me how many bullets I have to shoot back at people that at a threat that they can't even identify, but killed 14 of my neighbors and injured 21 others. And so I don't care about their gun laws. I'm not going to abide their gun laws. I'm going to live free, and they can go screw themselves. They can go pound sand.
Sure. But even friends of ours, even people we talk to every day, have been captured by the left in what I would call their Stockholm syndrome, which they believe, well, what could it hurt? What could it hurt if you had 10 less bullets? You know, they fall into that narrative of you don't need X, Y, and Z. And we have to drag them back into the reality argument, saying it is not government's job nor their purview to tell us all the myriad things they want to limit from us. This is not what our government in America was created for. There's plenty of other governments were created for that, but not ours. And so we know a return to constitutional values is the way to heal this country and not to get further away from it.
Absolutely. And Mike, it starts, you can't live free if you can't think free. And so your topic, I want to thank you for coming on, about freeing yourself from the shackles of political correctness by understanding that it was intentional. Michael Hoskinson.
Can I
Great
mention
American.
one thing before we go?
We're out of time here, but if you want to hold over, I'll let you talk in the next segment.
Okay, just one more small thing.
You got it. Be right back after these messages. Hey, welcome back to the Radio Free California Network. I am Tim Donnelly, your host, former California State Assemblyman and radio governor here in the state of California. We have Michael Hoskinson on the phone. He has been gracious enough to share with us his extensive knowledge of the beginnings and foundings of political correctness, including he's always engaged in the fight against it. But I got to give him a shout out, because you know what? If you are in the Huntington Beach area, and I realize we're not there on terrestrial radio yet, but we have a lot of people listening online, you got to go to the Spaghetti Bender, because that's Michael Hoskinson's family, and you need to. We need to start subsidize or giving business. I'm trying to find the big fancy word, but giving business to those who are patriots, those who are standing with us. Anyway, Mike, take it away. You wanted to make one more point. And I just gave you a free commercial because I love you, brother, and I love what you're doing. So talk to us.
Hey, man. My mom will thank the plug. Tell her I'm sure she'll appreciate it. But I wanted to share with your listeners, there is a great resource right now, PJ Media, that you and I both know, conservative outlet for media. Their writer, Michael Walsh, great writer, has written a book called The Devil's Pleasure Palace. It is all about the Frankfurt School, and it's all about their corrupting influence on the West. I've read it. I can't highly recommend it enough for folks who, think, oh, that Hoskinson guy in the video is probably a crazy guy. It's a full book.
I don't want to play devil's advocate here, Mike, but that sounds like a strip club.
Well,
I don't want to get you in any trouble here, but you're sure?
I'll just leave
that is
alone.
The title of a book.
The Devil's Pleasure Palace. But, just to close it out, I just want to tell people, free speech and political correctness, they just can't exist in the same reality. They're like matter and antimatter. They not only are polar opposites, but they cancel each other out. And I would say to people, free speech is a use it or lose it proposition. So I'd say get out there, speak your mind at all times. Yeah.
So you're saying that political correctness is antithetical to free speech, and they cannot mutually coexist, to use a bunch of words I learned as an English major.
Absolutely. You nailed it, sir.
Light and darkness. There it is. Well, Michael, thank you for coming on. Thanks for all you're doing. And I'm glad you hung around and told us about this Devil's Pleasure Palace you went to. You read Michael Walsh book, but come back often because we always love to hear from you.
Hey, Tim, Merry Christmas. Thanks to your listeners and you, and we'll see you soon.
And same to you, my friend. Godspeed. And by the way, tell your mom we'll be coming down that way soon to get some more of that great Italian food. Hey, if you want to call in, if you want to weigh in, the phone number is 323-746-TALK. That's 323-746-8255. And it is Politically Incorrect Friday. And you know what? We'll take you on any topic. We don't really care. But I am hammering away at this because this is the root of the problem. This is the heart of the problem. When we heard yesterday in that clip by Joy, I forget her last name, but she's a liberal. She's a feminist, and she talked about that. But she sounded just like one of us. And when I say one of us, I don't mean a conservative. I don't mean a Republican. I'm talking something much more important. She sounded like an American. And so many on the left are socialists. They're Marxists. They're progressives. And they don't want America to succeed. They want to fundamentally transform it into a socialist or communist utopia in their minds. They want to steal from those who produce and give to those who don't. They want to create fairness. They want to create zones where they cannot be offended, instead of supporting what is in the Constitution, in the Bill of Rights, the right of free speech. I mean, when Attorney General Loretta Lynch said she was going to arrest people if they spoke the truth about Islamic fundamentalism, Islamic supremacism, Islamic jihadism, Islamic Shariaism. We got a new word today from the Department of Homeland Security guy that they kicked out for being politically incorrect. He called it a Salafi, which I guess is Islamic originalists, those who take everything literally and go all the way back to the foundings of their religion, which I consider now at this point, when you take it that far, it's a cult. When you are a Salafi, when you are a jihadist, you're part of a cult. You're not part of a legitimate religion. And I think that's where the distinction comes in and should come in. We're going to go to the phones and pick up your calls and your comments. You're live on air. Give me your first name and city, please.
Gary Hesperia.
Gary, welcome to the show.
Yes, I talked to you the other day, and I was just listening to your Mike guy from there, and I never thought about it. That was absolutely fabulous. It makes so much sense. It's and one heck of a...
And you know what, Gary, I want to say something. Mike Hoskinson was just an ordinary guy like you and I. He wasn't some guy who was connected. He was a guy who did some research. I brought him on today because he emailed me this morning, and I thought, this is exactly what I'm starting to connect the dots on, but he knew a lot more than I did. But he's just a regular guy. So the solution to this problem is not waiting for them, quote unquote, or the government, air quotes here, to do something to save us. We must save ourselves.
Oh, I agree 100%. I'm retired military, and I was looking at a post, and it talked about certain things, and I think about the various mottos throughout the military establishment, and from the Air Force, which I'm retired from, is that others may live. We do what we do that others may live. Yes, we have to protect ourselves, and we have to adhere or listen to history, and Mike's research was so spot on, it's unbelievable.
Gary, that is beautiful, that sentiment that others may live. Thank you for your service to this country, and thank you for your continued service, because you're one of those people, I guarantee you, that in your circle of friends, people look to you, they listen to you, you're a leader, and one of the people underestimate how much influence they have on others. And whatever you learn on this show, yeah, I'm expecting every one of you to spread it far and wide. And a lot of the wisdom you could get doesn't come from me. I just ask the right questions, and I know the right people And but a lot of the wisdom comes from you, and all of it comes from God. That we can acknowledge.
Amen.
Well, hey, thanks for the call, Gary. Have a great weekend.
You too.
And we're going to pick up another patriot here, a frequent caller to this show, Mike from Wrightwood. Mike, first of all, thank you again for your service. I never get to say that enough to you, because not only did you serve when you served, but you're continuing to serve. And that's one of the things I love about you, man.
I appreciate it, but, it's always an honor to actually get to serve the greatest country in the world. So I know people like to thank us, but, the obvious is, we got to thank everybody else in this country by keep serving and making sure that deals we took, we don't get rid of it. It doesn't go away. And, I called Washington today, trying to get a hold of, Representative Cook, but he's on his way back out here to find out, what they're going to do, if they're going to let people like me sit around and just watch this and get more pissed off, or, let us start doing what we do. Let us start, making sure that we live in a safe community and teach others how to spot these people, what to look for. There are things we can do. I'm just baffled when I hear people talk about moderate extremists and all the different names that we add to it when, the 21,000 people at Camp Bucco, Iraq, just said they were Muslims. They were attacking us. They were trying to kill us because the Quran said so. But, they didn't see themselves as extremists, or moderates or anything else. It's just, they said in the Quran they got, reasons to do what they do. And by doing that, they get to go to heaven. They get their virgins. They get to move on with life and live in paradise. And, they're good with themselves because they did everything they could to trying to destroy non-believers. And,
so they've got,
it blows my mind.
They believe that the Quran just gives them a license to hunt infidels like you and me.
Well, it's not even infidels; it's non-believer. That's one of the things that I think actually no offense, but the left side of the media really ran with when we were in Iraq. This whole thing about infidel guys wearing patches that says infidel is a joke, because the Quran doesn't really talk about infidels; it talks about non-believers. And,
I kind of like the term infidel.
If you go back to,
I liked being called an infidel.
Yeah, well, yeah. But it's just, it gives some people, though, the idea that we had to do something wrong for them to attack us. And, I think it's, one of the guys running for our, office goes out there and talks about how they're after us because our women drive and our women get, we're non-believers. And, infidel and non-believer, if you're a non-believer, then you're an infidel. So, it's, a matter of wording, but I know that, the first couple of years when I got back from Iraq, when I was going through medical hold, that, I used to listen to the news, and the way they use that word, especially CNN, CSNBC, and all that, was that, it was our fault 9/11 happened. It was our fault these things did. And what really amazes me, though, is that, it was actually Clinton who went into Saudi Arabia that caused the fatwa to be issued by bin Laden because he was pissed off that we went into his homeland. And that's what began this whole cycle of them coming after us. But because Bush went in and over there, everybody decided that, it was his fault. But people ought to do some research, do the history on Al-Qaeda. Bin Laden was actually second in charge. He took the guy and, to just break.
But hold on, Mike. Mike, let me play devil's advocate with you, because you just finished saying that we didn't do anything wrong. So you can't go then to partisan, left versus right, Clinton versus Bush. It's got to be, look, maybe that was the opportunity that they used, the excuse that they put forward, this fatwa. But in the end, didn't they want to kill us anyway? Weren't they plotting and planning to wipe out Western civilization, as it were?
According to the Quran, there will be a day when there will be an explosion. There will be gases that will go across the north or the east to the west. There will be the explosion will cause gases to come out of the eyes, the nose, and the buttocks, which is basically like your nuclear weapon. And when that day occurs, the 12th Imam will arise. And at that point, the earth is to be 1/3 Muslim. All Muslims are to rise up, take arms, and get rid of all non-believers. And that's where I have the issue of moderate, and always kind of wonder people that say that they follow the Quran, that they're Muslim. What happens if they do set off one of these bombs and some leader from, like, say, Iran decides to say, hey, guess what? The 12th Imam's here. I dealt with 5 guys who were interpreters. They taught me the Quran very well. In both English and, because there is a difference between English and Arabic. So I learned it, the Arabic version of it. And, it's a really scary thing to sit there and look at. But then, we allow what, they say is a freedom of speech, freedom of religion in this country. But at the same time, we're allowing something that is against our Constitution by allowing people to preach this to kids, by allowing them to go to, mosque and be taught that they're supposed to
Mike,
hate
let
us.
me stop you. Let me stop you there. I want to keep you on hold if you don't mind, because I got to take a break, but I want to ask you some questions when we get back. Hey, welcome back to the show. We're talking with Mike from Wrightwood, who is an expert on the threat that we are currently facing. And Mike, before the break, you were talking about how in the future there is this vision within the Quran of how the world essentially is going to end at some great battlefield, and the weapons that they're going to use and everything else. Why is it that nobody seems to know any of this? I mean, obviously you guys were taught it in the military, but what happens when it goes up the chain of command? What possible purpose do you believe, or do you think there could be to denying the truth that you just laid out 5 minutes ago on the show?
Well, because the problem is that there's only a few of us that, specialize in this line of work. And, a lot of guys won't take the time to actually read it. Military actually doesn't teach it. They stay away from the Quran. We even had a mosque in Iraq that we used to call the Article 15 Mosque, because if you were caught anywhere within 100 yards of it, you can get an Article 15. So, we're not allowed inside of there because we're non-believers, just like women weren't in there. And, I know that there's, like people who listen that are Muslim want to, fight and argue about what it says, because there's a little bit of a difference in the translation between American and Islamic or Muslim, or however they want to put it. But the bottom line is it doesn't really change the outcomes of what they're looking at. And the reason why we have the fight, that's really, kind of wild, is the Sunnis and Shias fighting over who the 12th Imam is going to be, whether it's a blood relative or not, is, the only thing that really keeps them busy. And, when you talk about, the enemy and who these guys are, their fears, there are so many things that we have at our disposal to put an end to these people even wanting to come here. The Quran, everybody always talks about pork and makes fun of it. It's like, well, if you're going to sit there and talk about, okay, if you want to do these things to our country, we're going to inject this into you and take away your rights. There goes your right to have in your paradise. But, we've gotten to where waterboarding was considered to be something bad, even though it was something that the FBI, CIA, some police, some military actually went through. And, it was something that, to give up information, people seem to think that we listen to the first thing somebody says out of their mouths, like we're stupid. We stopped so many attacks. We've captured so many people. The fact that we tracked down Saddam Hussein inside of a little tiny hole in a house, in Tikrit, it's just insane. People need to think that, or at least look at the fact that military intelligence and all the Western intelligence, there's a lot of stuff out there. You can't catch everything, but they would be surprised at how much we do. But we do that with things that we can do and things at our disposal.
Oh, okay, but let me bring you back to this case right here in our backyard. You heard the clip earlier. You heard that the Department of Homeland Security brought in, and I wrote it down because I was shocked. They brought in the State Department, so that's a political division, first of all. Then they brought in the Civil Rights Division of DHS, of Department of Homeland Security. And they shut down an investigation because they were investigating Islamic groups, and therefore they shut down the investigation of Syed Rizwan Farouk. He could be right now cooling on ice in some prison in America for plotting jihad here, and he could have been taken into custody, and there would be 14 people, including 2 of my neighbors, still alive.
Right. And it's, look at the mosque that we had that was under surveillance at 9/11 after that happened years ago, and everybody freaked out because we were actually monitoring mosque. It had radical stuff going on. People were being indoctrinated and being sworn in. One of the things that I was asked one time was like, how did the religion grow so fast? How did it become so strong? And it's like, okay, if you have a person who has nothing, they live in dirt, it's 125 degrees, and you go to them and tell them, hey, you know what, if you're praying here 5 times a day, if you're doing this so many times a day, if you're facing that, if you do all these things, and one day you create jihad and you go out and you give your life to take that of non-believers, you're going to live in something that you couldn't even imagine. It's paradise. It's the greatest thing in the world. You're going to have women. You're going to have light. You give somebody something that has hope, and if you do it enough, It's like you're talking about it being a cult. Well, there you go, because that's what it is. You got people out there that are being told that whatever they do at the cost they're going to get. And then you have a government that is so worried about whether or not somebody's civil rights or somebody's feelings might be hurt, because that's really what it gets down to.
Okay, let me ask you a quick question, because we've only got a minute left, or less than a minute. The mosques. I've heard two things. One, that the entire Obama administration, our State Department, Homeland Security, has been infiltrated by Muslim Brotherhood, and that Muslim Brotherhood and Saudi Arabia are deeply embedded and involved with something like 80% of the mosques in this country. True or not true?
That's what we believe.
Wow.
So it would be probably more true than anything else. I mean, that is where, I mean, every one of these guys that we go after, we find out they have something to do with a mosque, and they've been in a mosque, which means that there's more of them out there, more of them that had to do with the mosque that's around them, and there's a reason why we should be surveilling these mosques, all of them. I mean, no questions asked. If we want to keep our people safe, that's what we got to do.
Thank you. Thank you for your service. And give out that email again real quick.
It's Veterans Are Patriots at .org, veteransarepatriots.org, and you can send something there if you got anybody you want to have me check into.
Okay, thank you. Godspeed, my friend. That's 323-746-TALK. For those of you who wish to get in on the conversation, what we've been talking about is the heart, the root of what is wrong with our great republic. What ails the greatest country on the face of the earth? And it is clearly the political correct corruption. And I call it corruption because it's intentional. This didn't happen by accident. There was a plan, just the same as the communists wanting to infiltrate our culture, infiltrate our education establishments, turn them into indoctrination centers. Hey, there's an epic success. And we have watched since 9/11, since over 3,000 of our fellow citizens, fellow Americans were brutally, senselessly slaughtered in the name of an insane ideology. Islamic supremacism, Islamic fundamentalism, another term, the Shariaism, which is more the political ideology than it is religious. And when you understand that political ideology is almost always designed to conquer. And see, once people get in power, they become incredibly corrupt. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. We've known that. This goes back to the beginnings of time. And yet, those who are entrusted with power, such as Attorney General Loretta Lynch, such as Barack Hussein Obama, have used that power against us. They have used that power to weaken this country and fundamentally transform it into their image rather than rule at the consent of the governed. And more Americans are waking up and saying, F you to the government. As a matter of fact, Sean, I know I'm springing this on you. I don't know if you have it, but the clip of Loretta Lynch saying that she was going to come after Americans, if you've got that, and then followed by my response, I'd love to play that. I just feel like people need to hear that on a Friday afternoon before they go off for the weekend. I don't know if it's even possible you might have it anywhere in your wheelhouse, but if you do, you're so amazing. That's Sean McNeil, the technological genius who keeps this network running, and it is a full-time job, unfortunately. But look, when have we ever heard an American elected official? I mean, I didn't like Jimmy Carter, and we're going to play a clip from him a little bit later on where he actually sounds like an American. But check this out. This is your attorney general charged with going after the bad guys and upholding the rule of law. And listen to her threat to your First Amendment right to speak the truth about Islamic jihadists.
The rise of the internet, the ability of people to issue hateful speech of all types from the anonymity of a screen is something that increases that rhetoric. Now, obviously, this is a country that is based on free speech, but when it edges towards violence, when we see the potential for someone lifting that mantle of anti-Muslim rhetoric, or, as we saw after 9/11, violence directed at individuals who may not even be Muslims, but may be perceived to be Muslims. And they will suffer just as well, just as much. When we see that, we will take action.
And here was my response. That's okay. I'm giving you a long, pregnant pause so that you really appreciate it. And this
former California State Assemblyman Tim Donnelly here with an important message for Attorney General Loretta Lynch. You've threatened to prosecute Americans for speaking the truth about the Islamic supremacists who killed 14 Americans last Tuesday, instead of actually targeting the jihadis who have threatened to kill more. You're not an attorney general. You're an embarrassment. When you became attorney general, you swore an oath to uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States and protect it from all enemies, foreign and domestic. And instead, you're using the power entrusted to you by the people to threaten the natural, civil, and constitutional rights of countless Americans. You don't uphold the rule of law, you're a threat to it. I'm not sure if you're an idiot or you're deliberately undermining the security of the United States. Whichever it is, you violated your oath. I don't know how you got this job, whether it was your anti-American ideology or your skin color or both. But I'm going to tell you one thing. We, the people of these United States, refuse to be intimidated by you. You work for us. You rule at our consent, not the other way around. Your politically correct assault on free speech has empowered our enemies. Neither you nor Obama can identify the true nature of the evil, Islamic extremism, that claimed the lives of 14 innocent Americans, including some of my neighbors. So I don't expect you to be able to do anything about it. But this didn't happen in New York or Los Angeles. It happened in my backyard. So it's deeply personal. The people of my community are good and decent people. And they can't understand why you and Obama could go to Charleston, where you've turned your back on the victims of the San Bernardino Christmas party massacre. Several of the victims are from my own community, a tiny little mountain town in the San Bernardino Mountains. One man, Michael Wetzel, left behind 6 children. He went to school with one of my sons. He went to church with some of my friends. He coached soccer in a league administered by my wife. Everybody knows everybody in this community. More and more of us are beginning to question why the followers of the religion of peace have declared war on innocent Americans. We can't understand why you and Obama had no problem speaking out against the evil of a disturbed lone racist after 9 black Americans were murdered, but you can't even say a word about radical Islamists. Obama didn't ask for people to be patient. He didn't advocate that anyone wait for the facts to come out after Charleston. He didn't ask citizens to reserve judgment. In fact, with his rhetoric, he encouraged more hate. And you didn't threaten to prosecute those who threatened violence against Southern Americans because it didn't fit your political agenda. But you protect the mosques who protect the jihadis. If you were an American who loved this country, you'd put the mosques on notice. You'd tell them, if you don't turn over the extremists and the jihadists within your midst, then we'll set the FBI on you. We'll turn your mosques upside down. We'll make your lives a living hell until you rat out those who have declared war on America. But instead, you threaten the family and friends of the victims of your failure to identify and prosecute those who've sworn to kill anyone who doesn't pledge allegiance to their insane jihad. Well, I'm putting you on notice. If you don't go after the Islamic jihadis next door, we will. The only good jihadi is a dead jihadi. And the next jihadi to rear his or her ugly head in my backyard and point a weapon at me and my friends will get a 45 hollow point between the eyes. So if by refusing to be the next victim in the war the Islamic jihadis have declared on us somehow makes me an advocate of violence, then bring it on. Come and arrest me. I'm not hard to find. And then you can explain to the American people why we are the target of your wrath, not the murderous bastards who slaughter the innocents, even at a Christmas party, all in the name of the religion of peace. I'm former California State Assemblyman Tim Donnelly. Godspeed.
You know, this jihadist, Farouk, actually he would come to the mountains, to this community where 2 Americans have lost their lives. And he was the guy that would go into a restaurant and make sure they're complying with all the county laws. So a number of my friends that own restaurants, including Antlers and Rockies and others, said, you know, if we'd known that he was this kind of guy, we'd have just put a 45 between his eyes and taken him out back and buried him somewhere. I mean, but how do you know? And we're peace-loving. We're a peaceful people. And it's deeply, deeply disturbing. I'm going to go to the phones. John in North Carolina. John, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, and Merry Christmas to you.
Thank you. Same to you.
You are fired up tonight. You are fired up tonight.
Well, you know, I keep going out on breaks, and I'm shoveling the snow, and it's pumping up, you know, the volume here because I'm getting exercise. I love it.
And that's 60, well, it's 55 here, but it was a beautiful day here on the
rub
East
it in.
Coast of
Go
North
ahead.
Carolina.
Go ahead.
Okay.
You
Not
probably
much
went
I love
golfing.
this
You got golfing planned for the weekend, don't you?
No, I have to work this weekend, actually. So
all right.
I'll be working till next Thursday. But isn't it convenient? Well, first of all, presidents past, present, and future, do they not take a pledge of oath to uphold and protect the Constitution?
Every single elected official does. I myself swore that same oath. So yes.
Exactly. But isn't it convenient how they're all these Loretta Lynch and all these Republicans are coming out using the Constitution in the wrong way? Not in the wrong way, but they're
perverting it.
You know, it's exactly. It's convenient for them to use it when they see fit.
Yeah. Yeah. No. Exactly, John. You nailed it.
Yeah. So, which brings me to another kind of a eerie point when you know, I hear they're dredging or they're diving a lake out there looking for a hard drive. And I initially heard 3 to 4 shooters. Now there's only 2. And now this fella comes out from Homeland Security and says that they shut him down because of information he was ready to divulge. And here you go, constitutionally, these people were they're hiding stuff. And I think that area isn't still that
John, we have
heard about how. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead and finish because I got to take a break. So let me let you make your point.
Okay, I was going to say about how your area is so almost identical to places in Asia or in the Middle East with the joshua trees and all that. That the Middle East that kind of sent chills up my spine. When they've been around that long that they can survey the area and making a comparison to that area. That was weird to me.
It is, and John, I'm gonna let you go, but I got to tell you, we've got a government that is at war with us. They are not on our side, and we will continue exposing that right after this break. Hey, welcome back to the Radio Free California Network. I am Tim Donnelly, your host, former California State Assemblyman and radio governor here in the state of California. And look, I thought I'd just throw it out there because if you like this program, and you might have noticed I gave a couple of free commercials to individuals who I believe are great patriots who are doing great work and maybe don't have a advertising budget right now, but if you want to get a little exposure, if you want to support this kind of programming, send me an email, tim@timdonnellyshow.com. There's my shameless plug before I go to the phones and pick up Ben in Apple Valley. Ben, welcome back to the show.
How are you, Tim? Thank you.
I am fantastic. How are you?
I'm very well, sir. So I think one of the things that two points I'd like to touch on. One is I think the American people's response to Madam Lynch and her statement should be judging on the demographic charts that I've seen about Europe. The British are coming. We continue to look for the creation of more laws to change what we're seeing now, when all we need to look for is just the enforcement of the laws and the promises that our elected officials have given us.
No, you're in the oaths that they swore, right? But see, a law is just a piece of law. A law is words on paper. It's just words on paper unless it's backed up by the enforcement of the government or the people. And see, right now, the government is standing against the people, and the people are figuring that out. But see, we have the right to keep and bear arms, and that is the last great threat. That's the last great obstacle to absolute power for this government.
Yeah, correct. So I'll tie this together in just 1 second, but I had a good friend today that said to me, as a leaving point, we were talking about the no-fly list and what we believe is intimate coming from Obama and an executive order. I think it was Ohio that the state's going to say that the no-fly list bans you from owning a firearm. And he said, I'm okay with that. And I said, whoa. Never give up your constitutional given rights over something that is unvetted. I can't go to anyone to find out why I'm on it. I can't even understand how I got on the list. I have very good friends that have been on the no-fly list and have no idea how to get off or why they're on, merely for flying to different places or the frequency of flights, right? But so one of the questions I've had is over the K-1 visa. My wife now and I were engaged, you could say. She was my fiance for 6 years. And there's no legal document that says she's my fiance. But we will give to an immigrant, right? Someone from another country, the greatest gift you can give, which is entry to this country, over nothing but a word.
And Ben, that is a fantastic point. And look, Ben, it's very simple. It wasn't happenstance. It wasn't political correctness. It was an agenda. And it was the agenda of the Muslim Brotherhood that have infiltrated our government, that have taken over Obama's State Department, and they are the ones who pushed out those who had investigated Islamic groups that could have stopped the murder of 14 of our friends and neighbors.
Well, is that not a scary story? Is that not a frightening story?
Well, that is why gun sales... No, my pleasure. Great to have you on the show, Ben. You make some great points. That is why gun sales are going through the roof. That is why I am encouraging every one of you. Go to Turner's. Buy a gun. Mention my name so you get a discount. We'll be right back after these messages. You know what? This is the hour of political incorrectness. And I'm going to go straight to the phones, get your calls. Hopefully it's a politically incorrect thought. Give me your first name and city, please.
Yes. My name is Bob from Victorville.
Hey, Bob. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Tim.
Welcome to the show. You're live on air.
All righty. I wanted to mention something to you. While you were in office at the time, were you guys CalPERS?
Who?
It's kind of an off-the-wall. When you were an assemblyman, state assemblyman.
What do you mean by CalPERS?
Yeah.
I have no idea if that's is it a retirement thing?
Yeah, it's a retirement.
No.
Do you remember?
That only.
Well,
hold on. Let me finish. Only our staff received any kind of retirement benefits. When you're a state assemblyman, there's no pension, nor should there be.
Okay. Well, we had a congressman at the time that was going to repeal the Windfall Act, the Social Security Windfall Act. Anybody that worked under CalPERS, they were giving them a windfall. And then in California, they were windfalling people up to 70% of their Social Security. I went to another state, which was New Mexico, Santa Fe, and they windfalled me over there 48%. Something going on.
Yeah, I wouldn't know anything about that because I've never received any kind of a government pension. But look, the bottom line is that those that have power will always use their power to benefit themselves. And their needs and their desires and their ultimate plan is usually very, very different and at odds with the plan of the average working man or woman in this country.
Sure. I agree. Well, thank you for your input. I appreciate it. You know?
Hey, no worries, Bob. As I said, this is the politically incorrect, and you can talk about whatever you want. And here it is. We have been talking about the political correct jihad against Americans, because that's what it really is. I don't know what else to call it. But I want to play for you. This is going to seem really, really strange if you've followed this show for very long. I want to play a clip for you of Jimmy Carter. And if you've ever seen the movie Miracle, if you haven't seen it, you need to go out and Netflix it or buy a copy at Amazon and watch it, keep it. It is a terrific movie if you love America. Because it is a story about a hockey team that restored a lot of the hope and faith of this country at a time, a very low point during the Carter presidency. And if you watch the video that we've put up at timdonnellyshow.com, I want to make an editorial comment before I tell you about the actual content. A friend of mine, Mario Pellegrini, actually was known as the director of, I believe, 5 or 6 presidents. He refused to work for Carter, but he directed Ronald Reagan. He directed, I believe, possibly Nixon and a number of others, but including George Bush, George H.W. Bush, and numerous, mostly Republican presidents. But Carter, when you look at this video, he allows them to show a side view of him, and he's so gaunt and so frail, and he gets washed out by the windows. I've never seen any presidential press conference where they do that. And it really takes away from what he's saying. So I'm glad that you're going to hear it, not see it. But it also speaks to the various techniques that are at the behest of those in power to persuade you that they have all the answers when they use camera angles and they cut off questions and they script and choreograph, but you don't see any of the strings. All you hear is the ultimate result. And I want to go ahead and play this press conference because this is a statement by Jimmy Carter where he goes 3 steps beyond anything that Donald Trump has suggested. And this is ABC's Sam Donaldson asking a question.
Saying that Iran must pay increasingly heavy costs now, the president ordered 4 steps immediately. A complete break in diplomatic relations. Iranian diplomats must leave the United States by tomorrow midnight. Official sanctions prohibiting exports to Iran. The exporting of even food and medicine is expected to be minimal or non-existent. An inventory of frozen Iranian assets of over $8 billion in this country, and steps toward using the money to pay claims of Americans against Iran. And a virtual shutting off of all Iranian immigration into this country by refusing new visas to Iranian citizens. Moreover, the president warned these 4 steps may be just the beginning.
All of it. The steps I have ordered today are those that are necessary now. Other action may become necessary. if these steps do not produce the prompt release of the hostages.
Now, see, they only took hostages. They didn't murder 14 American citizens on U.S. soil. And here were his steps. First of all, he kicks out all Iranian diplomats. Get your asses out of the country, effective midnight today. And we're breaking off all diplomatic relations. You guys can all go F yourselves. That's what he said. Cut off all exports to Iran, including food and medicine. Too bad. Then he seized their money here. That'll hurt him. And he shut down all immigration from Iran. Now think about that. If I can't call him that. If Barack Hussein Obama, the current occupant of the White House, if he were to take the same actions and say, any terror-sponsoring countries, any countries from whom you have sent us anyone, or you have contributed in any way, if we can trace anything back to you, we don't want any immigration from you. We're going to cut off all exports to you. We're going to seize your money. And we don't want diplomatic relations. Think about that. But we'll never hear that from Ayatollah Obama. Because that's what he really is. He is, in whatever way, I don't know what his connection to the Muslim Brotherhood is, but he's got him in all kinds of positions of power. Other smarter people than me have laid out the case and shown who these people are. I'm just seeing the result. You're seeing the result. You've been asking yourself, why is it that he won't actually call Islamic jihadism Islamic jihadism? Why is it that he's so passionate about taking away your guns, taking away your First Amendment, your right to speak the truth about this great evil? But that's because it works. That's because it's part of a plan. That's because the left has always been more organized. They've had playbooks because they have people that get paid in the ivory towers to concoct these plans. One of them was Saul Alinsky, and in one of his principles was very simple. You demonize and ridicule your opponent. See, I had this happen to me when I ran for governor. We are watching it happen, and it was over Sharia law and a simple article that I tweeted. And people became apoplectic. It brought the establishment together as nothing else ever had. The media took free reign. But I'll never forget, I did one interview on Los Angeles radio, and it was a woman that really didn't like my position on illegal immigration, Jillian Barbary. She's on there with some guy named Phillips, and they do a show, and I said, look, why in the world would we want to elect a guy governor who wants to make our Treasury Department Sharia compliant? You know, Sharia finance compliant. Why would we want to be compliant with Sharia anything? That's all I asked. And she got it. And she said, I agree with you. This doesn't make any sense. But see, the minute you say that, you're called an Islamophobe. That's almost worse in this day and age than being called a racist. Now, you wonder why Donald Trump seems to be the Teflon man. Well, here they're trying to do the exact same thing they did to me to Donald Trump. He made his comment. He put out his press release on barring all Muslim immigration. They called him an Islamophobe. They called him George Wallace. They compared him to the racist Democrat governor of Alabama. They called him Hitler. They put up pictures as if he were saying Heil Hitler. They demonized and ridiculed, and nobody gave a crap because we're sick and tired of being told that we should be quiet and not tell the truth about these sick, twisted, insane people who have an ideology, who believe they have the right to jihad, who believe they have the right to kill us because they are going to launch off into the ether sphere and get 72 virgins when we know they're going to go to the depths of hell and not even find 72 whores. So, number one, on the Islamic issue, on the Islamic jihadism and extremism and fundamentalism, I like fundamentalism the best because it is the ultimate purpose. If you are the most purist, originalist, of this so-called religion, which when you get to that point, it's a cult. When you believe you have the right to kill people in the name of your religion, you're a cult. Okay? I'm just telling you. So that's become this third rail. Well, you know, Donald Trump touched it and didn't die. And what didn't die made him stronger. So then, I see I'm running up against the clock. You know what? I'll bring you the second point and the third point when we get back from this break, unless you interrupt me with a call, 323-746-TALK. Yeah, and I am hot-blooded today. If you can't tell, I am fired up. I am ticked off. I am tired of being abused by the government that is charged with protecting our rights. If you are, and you want to call in, it's politically incorrect hour. The hour of political incorrectness will take you on any topic. But here's the thing. We were talking before the break about Donald Trump and why he is so invincible, why he seems to tower in the polls and continue to go upward and upward and upward in spite of what the media describes as failings and flaws and mistakes. But see, Donald Trump is taking all the slings and arrows for you. He is being called Islamophobic because he's standing up to keep you safe. He doesn't care. Doesn't care what he's going to be called. He doesn't care about being labeled and demonized. And see, there's a power to that. And he's got a personality that rises above it. He's got enough money that, and so far he really hasn't had to spend any because the media just won't ever leave him alone. But the more they push on him, the more they lie about him, the more they hate him, the more we love him. I'm just telling you how it is. So I talked about how on 3 issues, on the whole so-called Islamic issue. Ooh, politicians terrified. They're all demonizing Donald Trump. Oh, this is not who we are as Americans. You know what? Jimmy Carter did it. Jimmy Carter stood up and said, no. Jimmy Carter exercised a power we gave him. So it is American to protect and defend and err on the side of caution. You don't have a constitutional right to come into this country. There's no global right to migrate to the United States. It just doesn't exist. It may exist in the mind of Bernie Sanders and Patrick Leahy from Vermont. I don't know how people out there in the live free or die state of New Hampshire, well, I know he's in Vermont, but close enough, how they got this mentality. I can't explain it to you. Because live free or die is exactly the mantra of a free people. And we know that we're on our own. And Donald Trump, surprisingly, because everyone expects him to be this fiscal conservative, no, he stood up on guns. He said, no, we need more guns, not less after Paris. He said the same thing after this. He has stood in there for the Second Amendment when most politicians would cave. So on the Second Amendment, which, by the way, if you ever want to figure out how to bring together a tremendous number of people, you need to just talk truthfully about the Second Amendment. It's real simple. You don't need a CCW to keep and bear arms. That might keep you out of trouble with the lawyers and the law, but you have a natural, fundamental, civil and constitutional right. And when I say natural, it is a right to defend your life. When I say civil and constitutional, you have a civil right to defend your life. And you have a civil right to keep and bear arms. You have a constitutional right because the Constitution, the Second Amendment, acknowledges it. But you know, it actually gives you the reason. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Those are powerful words, 26 words that equal freedom, that equal a free people. But you won't be a free people if you sit around and go, well, they told me I could only have 10 bullets in my magazine, and I don't want to get in any trouble. You know what? F that. go out and buy magazines that hold as many bullets as you feel comfortable and necessary to the security of you and your family. That's the only law and the only rule you should be abiding by, period. Because a right trumps a law. A law is just words on paper. Look, they don't enforce our laws on illegal immigration, but they want to enforce our laws on you, on some stupid, idiotic gun control agenda that is going to do nothing to stop any crazed lunatic from carrying out mass murder. And why should the crazed lunatic who isn't going to go, oh, wait a minute, California has a law that I can only have 10 bullets when I'm trying to kill as many people as possible. Okay, I'll put my 30-round clip down. You'd be a fool not to have your 30-round clip just because the government says you can't. And some of you might be cringing right now. You're like, oh my gosh, he's talking about breaking the law. No, I'm talking about something higher. I'm talking about living free. I'm talking about the fact that you can't live free if you can't think free. And there is nothing more important in this day and age to understand you're on your own. So it is important, it is critical that you be self-reliant and able to defend yourself. And by the way, the founders never envisioned the threat that we're dealing with now, even though they dealt with it. The pirates of Barbary, the Muslims back then. But they had a intense distrust of a powerful centralized government. And they knew that it would be a recipe for corruption. They knew that those with the power would overstep the power and they would insulate themselves from any kind of rebuke or any kind of reform from the people. And they wanted you to be armed against the government taking away your freedom by abusing its power. That's called tyranny. I know we don't use that word a lot, but it is an appropriate word. It is a necessary word, and it is what we are witnessing under Barack Hussein Obama and his administration. It is what we are witnessing under Jerry Brown and his administration. I'm going to tell you about the third reason that Donald Trump will Trump when we come back. 323-746-TALK. If you want to get in on it. I am Tim Donnelly, your host, former California State Assemblyman and radio governor here in the state of California. You know, before I give you the third reason that I think Donald Trump has become like Iron Man and nobody seems to be able to take him down, there was an interesting article I found, and it was something that Rush Limbaugh said on his radio program. He talked about, and I've always wondered about it, but I just didn't know, why is it that Obama always refers to ISIS as ISIL? And he always says it with this little, like, snarky ISIL. Almost like he doesn't want you to hear what he just said, and then everybody starts going, well, what did he say? He wasn't talking about ISIS. And therefore, there's confusion rather than clarity. And Obama says, I think there's a totally different reason for this. ISIS is an acronym for Islamic State of Iraq and Syria. Okay? ISIL stands for the Islamic State in Iraq and the Levant. The Levant includes the entire region, Rush Limbaugh points out. It would include Israel, which to these people, Israel is a fraud. Israel doesn't deserve to be there. They hate Israel. They've declared war on Israel. The supreme so-called leader of Iraq has said he would like to decimate and wipe them off the face of the earth along with the United States. See, that's all Palestine in their minds. And that's what I think is behind the pronunciation, this insistence that it be called ISIL. Therefore, it spreads the impression that even if Obama is speaking about the Islamic State, He's not really speaking about the Islamic State. He's speaking about ISIL, including the region of Israel, and declaring it to be part of Palestine instead of Israel. He's essentially handing it over. And Obama has literally been at war with Israel. They're our ally, but Obama hates them. I was in an event, my wife and I were at an event with the Consul General in Los Angeles, the Israeli Consul General. There were a bunch of actors there. Edward James Olmos. What's that lady that was on, on Desperate Housewives and a whole bunch of those other shows. She's Hispanic, kind of petite. Anyway, she was there. She made some rude comment about me. And it was kind of funny because she singled me out. And I was like, wow, I thought I was here as a guest, sort of honor, but whatever. Anyway, and she singled me out, obviously, for my anti-illegal immigration views, being a Minuteman. But I was there at this event with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of supporters of Israel, essentially. And most of them are Democrat. Most of them are Jewish, and they're Democrat. When they found out that their president, Obama, was holding unilateral negotiations behind the back of the American people, not doing it out in the open, he was doing it secretly, and they found out, negotiating with Iran. And they were horrified. They felt betrayed. They were offended. And yet, they still support him. They still support him. And I'm telling you, there is something deeper afoot. This is not mistaken political correctness. This is not happenstance political correctness. This is purposeful political correctness. It is an agenda. It is a narrative. And what you do is you put the narrative out there, you enforce it in the press, and when the press deviates, you punish them. And when anybody within your administration and the power that you have to fire them, when they deviate from the political correct agenda, you fire them. It's a career-ending offense to go after Islamic groups when you're fighting Islamic terror. Okay. That's what we learned today. That's what we learned today. As a matter of fact, we've got this clip. I'll play it for you in a little bit if we get a chance, because I don't know if we're going to, because I want to make the final point. I promised you that I would tell you the third reason why Donald Trump is invincible, why I believe he can't be taken out. Number one was he has stood up and allowed himself to be called an Islamophobe by standing against Islamic jihadism and protecting American lives. That is a crossover issue like we have never seen. 45% of Democrats are sick and tired and distrustful of Islam, and they do not want to be dead, nor do they want any family members dead, period. So life, is a nonpartisan issue. So Trump gets that support because he's the only one who has gone this far to where he has been thoroughly attacked and demonized to the point that he is the one associated with championing the American viewpoint. Number two was guns. He's the Second Amendment guy. He's the biggest Second Amendment guy in the race, not because he may hold the strongest, most passionate views, but because he's being associated with it. He's spoken out at the right time. Trump has an innate sense of timing when it comes to the media. And as soon as Paris happened, he said they need more guns because it was so obvious. I mean, we brought you the story of the Eagles of death metal and the concert, and we had my friend Ardon, who's friends with the band. Somebody needed to have a gun there to just take these guys out. They wouldn't have been able to kill 85 people in that concert. By the way, the Eagles of death metal went back to Paris and performed. I think that is just freaking awesome. That's what America is about. We don't back down. We don't cower. We stand up and we fight, and then we go about our business, and live our peaceful lives, because the bottom line is we are a peaceful people. But when you F with us, we will destroy you. And it won't be our government doing the bidding. This nonsense of running off and bombing Syria all over the place, now all of a sudden Obama's pretending he's engaged. You know what, dude? Drop it. Why don't you go after the cells here? Why don't you unleash American law enforcement, take the gloves off so that these men and women that are dedicated, that have sworn an oath to uphold and defend the Constitution, can go after the scum, the Islamic jihadist scum that are circling the drain among us, that are sitting out there waiting to strike and kill innocent people. That is where your war on terrorism should be fought. To hell with dropping bombs. That there's very little point. Those people are not going to make it here to our soil unless, which won't surprise me, unless you decide to just let them in. And see, if we shut down legal immigration and get rid of these visa waivers and everything else and don't let these terrorists in, these jihadists, they're going to try to get in through the border. And that's my third point. Donald Trump will seal the border. Donald Trump gets it that this issue hurts more Americans than almost any other. There was a news report in USA Today. They went to some Hooters in, I think, Georgia or something. And I guess they expected to find the dregs. And they discovered that Donald Trump is actually inspiring people who have completely given up, who hate the government, who don't trust the government, including a lot of veterans who served and feel betrayed. And they feel like politicians are worthless POSs who never keep their word. And they like Trump because he talks like one of us. They like Trump because he's got the wherewithal and the fortitude to withstand the attacks and never back down. He never backs down. And John in North Carolina is going to love this. He never apologizes, ever, even when he should. That's Donald Trump. And on the illegal immigration, he has been the staunchest, strongest voice. He has made it crystal clear, and he has identified himself with that issue. So if he were to deviate from that viewpoint and become all, reasonable and middle of the road, the people would abandon him. That's the way it works. But he's the one with the political capital to secure that border. And now, in light of the jihadist attacks and the desire to bring in 10,000 Syrian refugees, screw that. No American worth their salt wants them here. Even if they're nice people. You know what? The nice people have to suffer the consequences when the scum, when the jihadists are allowed to run amok and nobody in the Islamic community stops them. And now we know why, because the mosques protect them. And the mosques are under the control of Saudi Arabia and the Muslim Brotherhood. That is the connection. That's why they won't say a word. I almost felt like I was listening to Nazis who were just trying to hide their Nazism when I watched and listened to the tape of the interview with the imam and the leaders of this mosque, this terrorist mosque. That's it. If this was a Tea Party group and there were a Tea Party terrorist that went out and killed 14 Americans or 14 government officials or 14 of anything, they would be tearing apart the Tea Party. They wouldn't let the media barge into the crime scene and muck it up. They would be tearing it apart limb by limb. They would go to and arrest every one of the relatives. They would audit anyone who ever even looked or said the word Tea Party. But when it's Islamic, they want to stop you from even using that word. Think about it. That's why I think Donald Trump very well could be, and I guess I'm in the majority because 70% of Republicans think Donald Trump's going to be the nominee. And we are going to have a man who is going to pick a fight. He's going to pick the right fights. He's going to stand up for Americans. And we are going to back down these tyrants and these cowards and send them back under the rocks they crawled out from. 323-746-TALK. Final segment coming up. Hey, welcome back to the show. We are going to go straight to the phones. And give me your first name and city, please.
Hi, my name is Howard, Apple Valley.
Hi, Howard. How are you?
Oh, I'm fine. One thing I wanted to mention, I don't know if you've heard, but I heard on talk radio a few days ago that some of the Muslims are beginning to think that this president is the Mahdi, the Messiah.
Well, I had not heard that. It wouldn't surprise me in the least. He's clearly got strong ties to the Muslim Brotherhood. He has a special place in his heart for Islam, and he has done everything he can to work against the interests of the American people, and people are seeing it. He can't hide it. You know, aren't you a little surprised that he didn't come out here to San Bernardino when 14 Americans were killed in the most significant terrorist attack on U.S. soil since 9/11?
Well, what gets me every time there's a terrorist attack, if he goes there, he starts pushing his take away your guns.
Yeah, well, he can F that, because he ain't getting my guns. He isn't even going to get him. He's not going to be able to pry him from my cold, dead hands, because I taught my sons how to shoot. I've taught my wife how to shoot. So, and I think every American is now, I cannot tell you how many people I have talked to who are Democrats, who are independents, who were in favor of gun control, and they are now understanding that this whole agenda is about government control and about government controlling us. And in order to control us, they've got to disarm us. They can't have us understanding our rights and standing up for them. And the Second Amendment is the first thing that must go. And the First Amendment follows soon after.
Well, I think the only true defense is a concealed weapon carry permit.
Well, you can go get a concealed carry permit if you like. I will be bringing you some information on how to do that here in the near future. I believe the Second Amendment gives you the right to keep and bear arms, and I don't think you should have to ask the government for permission to do that. If you're a criminal, maybe you should have to go through some process to recover your rights, but bottom line is every American has an absolute right to keep and bear arms to defend their lives and their freedom from tyranny. Howard, thanks for the call. We're running up against it. And I got to tell you, I want to do a quick shout out. I was filming that video. You heard it earlier. I played it a couple times. My response to Obama and Attorney General Loretta Lynch. You know, I happened to stop by to buy a Christmas tree at Riley's Farms, which is owned by a friend of mine. And he invited me in, and he filmed that. He took his time, he used his equipment, he filmed it with 2 cameras and cut it and edited it. You know what? If you need a Christmas tree, I want you to go to Riley's Farms. Take the trip, take the kids. It's a gorgeous place, and they're patriots. They're people who get it. They're people who are spending their time and their resources fighting. So give your money and patronize them rather than just some random place where you can buy a tree because it's a tree. It's just a thought. And last shout out for today, Carpet Station here on the mountain, right there in at the Highway 18 and Lake Drive across from Cliffhanger. When I was retrofitting the Radio Free California Network studios, they wouldn't take any money. They gave me a free piece of carpet. They're fantastic people. They're patriots. So if you need carpet, go talk to them. And if you own a business and you like what I'm saying, I want you to call me, email me, support this show, advertise on it, and you will get your money back. And you will be supporting something that is important because we are informing, educating, and engaging the citizenry in their own defense. We're not waiting for the government. There is no they that's coming to save us. We are they. And you can hear it weekdays 3 to 6. This is the Tim Donnelly Show, which is heard on the Radio Free California Network and on stations like this. And if your station's not carrying our show, hit them up. Tell them that they need to have us on. It's the bottom line. In this day and age, truth is a rare commodity. It's a rarity. It's far too rare. We also have a podcast on YouTube. So go to Tim Donnelly Show, previous shows, check us out. Thanks to Sean McNeil, all of our sponsors, and of course you. God bless you and Godspeed. Tim Donnelly Show out.